Hi, welcome to today's program about encapsulation of your family heirlooms. My name is Karen. I'm the library assistant at the Richardson-Sloane Special Collections Center at the Davenport Public Library. We're glad you joined us today. Why should you encapsulate? Why not just laminate? I used to teach school and we laminated everything. And that was fine for something that wasn't a precious heirloom. But we want to be able to undo or reverse anything in the library conservation world so that we can have the as close to an original document as possible. And particularly with your family heirlooms, you're going to want to leave them in the original condition. So this is a process that's relatively inexpensive, it's quick, simple, and reversible. All good things when it comes to preservation. So what materials do you need? You need something called mylar or polyester. Now this needs to be an archival quality, and I'm not going to get into all the scientific reasons, but you can order it through any archival supply company like Hollinger, University Products, Gaylord, all the usual suspects. Mylar or polyester comes on rolls like this of various lengths and widths, and it also comes in various thicknesses. You probably don't need to order an entire roll. We do at the library because of the number of items that we find we need to encapsulate and the large sizes, particularly of maps that we work with. It's rather expensive when you get it in a roll. Of course, we've used this roll up nearly. So more likely, you're going to want to use sheets that are pre-cut. And again, you can get them in a variety of different sizes and thicknesses, but I think you'll find these much less expensive and much more user-friendly. Set that aside. You also need to have some sort of a surface to work on. I like to use this grid. It's basically like quilters use for their fabric. It's just got various grid lines on it in different widths and dimensions. You'll want some two-sided tape. We recommend 3M number 415. That's pretty standard, and again, you can order this through any archival product company. The typical thickness, the standard for just regular paper documents for the mylar is a 3 mil. And if you're doing something heavier like a map or maybe a marriage, decorative marriage poster that your grandmother received in 1915 when she got married, you might want something a little heavier, so then they recommend a 7 mil for that. So there is a variable in the way it behaves when you're working with it, so sticking with the standard is probably a pretty good idea. You need some sort of straight edge. Again, you could use a drafting tool like this, or quilters have these types of T tools, or you can just use a good straight edge. I don't recommend wood. I would try to find a metal ruler, maybe one of these longer lengths, a yardstick or a 18-inch instead of the typical 12-inch ruler. You want a good sharp pair of scissors. You want some sort of a weight to help you out since you only have 2 hands. You could use a book weight like Catherine showed you how to create in her program on book weights. You could use one of those, or you could just get a plastic container of some sort and fill it with pennies or coins or even BBs, something like that, just to help you out, give you an extra hand. You want some sort of a squeegee or a brayer to use, and If your document has any large tears in it, you might want to look into purchasing some mending tape. Or mending tissue. This we recommend. Please don't use cellophane tape or masking tape. They just yellow and become brittle over time. So we would encourage you to, if you feel like you need some mending on your document before you encapsulate it, use the mending tissue and a bone and work very slowly with very small pieces. Help you out. Then take your document. This is a a baptism certificate of my grandmother's from 1894. It's all written in Danish. Line that up on the mylar plastic, leaving at least 1/8 of an inch space between where you're going to use the two-sided tape and the document. So here's my tape, and I've got it lined up pretty well, and I'm going to make it so what I want is I want to use the line on the grid to help me with my tape placement so that I keep it nice and straight. Now, there's a couple different schools of thought. When I have a document like this that I think is pretty valuable, I line it all up and then I move the document. And this is where your weights come in, because you want to keep the mylar where it is, but I like to move the document because I wouldn't want to get the tape on that. So then I'm going to run my piece of tape and line it up with the grid line. Go slow. It's not hard, it's just can be tedious. And then have your scissors handy for a nice little snip. Okay, and now I'm ready to use that squeegee or the brayer to make sure that I've got that nice and flat. Okay, now I'm going to lay my document back on there, slide it over there again, and find my next line for the other edge. And I like to do, it's just personal preference, I like to do long side, short side, but you can, you'll figure out what works for you. Again, I want to make sure that I'm leaving space between where the tape is and where the document is. And once I've found my grid line that I need, make sure my weight is in place, remove the document so that it doesn't get caught up in any sticky situation, if you will. And leave a little bit of space between that the first tape line and this tape line so that air can get out. Place your tape, make a cut, use my brayer, make sure I got it nice and flat, don't have any wrinkles. Same thing, put it back on, make sure I found my grid line that I'm going to use. Line it up, take your time. Okay, I got it. Place your weight to give you that extra hand. Run your two-sided tape down the grid line that you picked out. Make your cut. Use your brayer. And this will be our last short edge now. I'll line things up. Find my grid line. Remove the baptismal certificate. My grandmother was raised in a Danish family. Her parents immigrated. So when I go back in my genealogy to do find my immigrant, I don't have to go very far on that side. And line it up with my grid line. Use my brayer. Okay, so now as you can see, I've got my two-sided tape on there on all four edges. Now is the time to put my document in there, get my second piece of Mylar, and you're going to notice there's a little bit of static cling when you lay it down on there. And in fact, it's okay to wiggle it around a little bit and create some static cling. That's a good thing. The static cling is a good thing. You want it because it'll keep that document nice and safe in there. Like I mentioned, we want the air to get out. We don't want the document to slide around within this clear plastic envelope that we're creating here. So now we've got the second piece of Mylar on top. This again is when you need that extra hand. So use your book weight and begin peeling that top of the, should let it do its work. Let the book weight hold the top layer for you while you peel the two-sided tape. Take that protective layer off. Okay, and now gently place that layer over the two-sided tape, and now is when you take your squeegee, and we're trying to push all the air out. And it should be coming out those corners. Remember, we didn't put the corners tight together. We left a little space. Okay, so far, I've got two sides done, two sides to go. So I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to let the book weight help me out. Hold that top layer of Mylar back. Remove the backing from the two-sided tape. Carefully bring down that top layer. Use your squeegee. Push the air out. And now the document is sealed between the two sheets of Mylar. And my last suggestion would be to trim the corners to round them so that they don't catch on other items and risk pulling the other items open. Plus it just makes for a nicer looking finished document. Now when we're using that big roll, obviously there's a lot more trimming that has to go on. We end up doing a lot of trimming all the way around. It's nice, these little pre-cut sheets, because all you have to trim usually is just the very edge. So that is one way to create an encapsulation envelope for a special document. If you have something a little heavier that you know maybe it has two sides and you're going to want to remove it, you can also use archival tag board and create a folder and then put a piece of Mylar in there and just put your two-sided tape on one side. That way you can lift the Mylar and get at the document, because maybe for whatever reason you want to be able to take it out. There are a few items that we do this with. We typically put them in the two-sided Mylar, but occasionally there'll be an item that we think is better handled in this manner. And there are more explicit directions for something like that, or what I just did on the internet, just on YouTube. So just Google something like folders with polyester covers, or Google encapsulation, and there are lots of different ideas out there for you. I hope you enjoyed today's program. I enjoyed being with you. Thanks very much. Join us again next time for some preservation from the library. Thanks.